you're a member of a grotto, if you're a caver, what are some of the things that you're going to need? You're already into this. You're like, come on, let's go. What are we going to do? What do I need to take with me?
Well, you want to take 3 forms of light and plenty of backup batteries, and take glow sticks, take the headlamps, take lighters, even though those will get wet. You can bag them in the dry bag, but take as many forms of light as you feel comfortable with. That's not less than 3. I took like 4 or 5 flights.
That's smart.
Yeah, then I knew I was going to be fine, but I was just like, you know what? I'm going into the depths of the earth. I want to have lots of light at my disposal.
Right, and you want to also have lots of batteries and extra volts for those light sources.
Yeah, sure.
Just because your light is the #1 most important thing when you're caving. That's the #1 most important piece of equipment.
Yeah, and my buddy Eric had a carbide lamp, which, back in the day with like even car headlights and lights on the fronts of houses, wasn't always a gas lamp. Sometimes it was carbide. And old school cavers used these things, and it's basically a chemical reaction. It burns acetylene gas, and it's created from a reaction of calcium carbide with water. So he had this pod that he carried on his belt that had carbide pellets in it, and it would drip water down and create the gas, and it fed it up through a tube connected to the gas lamp that he's wearing on his head.
Wow.
And it was really cool. The other guy didn't have one, but Eric was using it. And the light that it gives is just really very illuminating. It's not like how incandescent light is just so specific. Mm-hmm. Even if it's like a broad range, it's not like having a flame.
Right.
So this thing really warms up the cave, and it does actually warm it slightly, but just generally with light warmth.
Right.
It's just like the cave was illuminated, not like a flashlight shining on something.
Right.
Very cool.
Nice.
And very durable. Like, if you take care of these things, they're a little finicky, but if you take care of them, you can have them like your whole life.
Sounds kind of newfangled.
No, it's very old school.
Well, old-fangled.
Yeah, it's old-fangled.
Yeah.
And he just looked cool. Eric looked like a cool guy with this tube running out of his head and flicking the little lighter switch, and he looked cooler than I did.
Right.
With my
glow stick.
Yeah, with my glow stick. So you need light.
You need light. You need a helmet. And you want your helmet to be certified by the Union Internacional de Asociaciones del PSMI.
Yes.
Jerry just laughed there.
You want a helmet. You want and this is if you want to do it right, and safely. We saw morons in tank tops and shorts walking around, crawling around, and these guys are just rolling their eyes. So those are the people that get hurt and get lost.
Right.
We had knee pads and elbow pads, helmets. As far as safety gear, that was pretty much it. And then they had rope and stuff, just in case. And you want to dress appropriately.
Mm-hmm. In layers.
Avoid cotton.
Well, if you are wearing cotton, you want to wear it under layers of synthetics.
Yes.
Snag less easily, they dry more quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine you just want to avoid cotton altogether if possible.
Yeah, or one of those synthetic bikini shirts,
Yeah.
the workout shirts.
Yeah. But you want to dress in layers because it's cold in there.
Yeah.
But you may raise your heart rate here or there. You may get a little warm.
I did raise my heart rate.
Yeah.
You're gonna get wet most likely. You can be in a dry, dusty cave, but chances are you're gonna get wet. There were times where we were up to our chest in a crevice about 2 feet wide, up to our chest in water, and it's intimidating. It's like I am far away from anybody, and what if this water rises? I mean, it didn't, but what if it started raining? These things can happen pretty fast down there.
Okay.
And so we were literally soaked to the bone. It's like getting in a swimming pool, and then you get out and you're covered in mud, and you're supposed to climb things. It's like climbing a greasy wall of stone. I'm like, am I supposed to really do this?
Right. And
they were pushing me by my butt. It was sort of embarrassing, pulling me. I felt like I stuck big at times.
The only thing that made it better was the warm glow of the carbide.
And then they had the pancakes, where it's I'm surprised my body fit in this thing. And you had to go 30 feet across this pancake.
Bad shots. I lost the whole fucking thing. It's not my fault it pulled me past the 3-point line. Fucking game.
Space to crawl through, and you can't even crawl. You're inching, using your shoulder blades.
I would have lost my mind.
You would not have liked this pancake. And that's when I remember thinking, boy, Josh would not have liked this part.
No.
It was uncomfortable for me, and I don't even have issues with close-in spaces, but you feel what if the earth shifted and this thing just smashed me?
Yeah.
Of course, the earth doesn't shift like that, but I don't know. It could. I'm down there. I'm freaking out.
Yeah. And you made it, though.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
You survived.
What else? You need food and water?
Yeah.
Sure.
And then some.
You want gloves, you want a first aid kit.
Yeah, and here's my favorite part. So we were talking about how, you just preserve the environment exactly as it was found. This also means that you're not allowed to poop there. You can poop there, but you're going to poop into plastic container
Yeah.
that you can carry out with you because you take your urine and your feces out of the cave with you. So you want a plastic bottle to pee into and a good crush-proof container to poop into.
I did not poop.
I wouldn't have pooped. I'd just be like, well, I guess I'm not pooping today.
Yeah, and I was only down there a few hours, so if you can't hold your poop a few hours, you probably shouldn't be caving today. Man, put it off.
Imagine getting sick down there.
Well, like vomiting?
No,
I'm not sure what you mean.
the other kind.
Oh, like poopy sick?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awful.
Yeah.
If you have a cave map, which you should have, bring a few copies. Put them in Ziplocs. Hand them out to your friends that you're with. Make sure everyone knows what's going on.
Right. And you also want to probably leave one at home with an X marks the spot of your route.
Sure.
And, well, that leads us to cave safety, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of precautions you should be taking before you set out.
Yeah, know what you're doing. Do not take it lightly. It's not like a hike that you could go on. So it's definitely different. You should go with someone that knows what they're doing, at the very least. A couple of people would be even better. They say not to go in really large groups because you don't want to, like, you could leave someone behind easier.
Yeah.
Like 4 to 6 people.
Right.
It's a good number.
And you want to put the slowest person at the front of the group.
That would have been me.
So everybody's kind of pushing them from behind, sometimes literally.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because, that person doesn't get left behind. It makes the whole group stick together.
Yeah.
And if you're into passive-aggressive peer pressure, that's great. That's a great situation for everybody.
Yeah.
No, you're fine.
I know. That's what they kept saying, too. They're like, oh, you're doing great, buddy. I was like, no, I'm not. I know I'm that guy.
You also never, ever want to go caving alone. I don't think there's a better sentence that's ever been spoken by anybody. Never go caving alone.
It's a good idea. If you do get lost, they say to stay put, and that it's better to stay put instead of moving around because at least you're where you last were.
Right.
You are where you last were.
Well, you're where you said you were going to be.
Yeah, at least.
Roughly.
If your light goes out and you're alone,
Start screaming at the top of your lungs until someone comes to get you.
that's probably not a bad idea, but they say not to freak out. But yeah, I would definitely try to make a little noise.
Although we also don't want to attract the descent hillbillies.
Yeah, whatever those were.
They were mountain folk. You know, that was a lot like a Lovecraft story.
Oh, what's it?
I can't remember the name of it, but it's there's a whole thing that takes place in Adirondacks, somewhere up there, where it's this family that was like kind of mountain folk came to inbreed and eventually moved underground. It was one of his best ones.
Man, we should do podcasts on him.
Okay.
What a twisted mind.
Yeah. Well, we did the Necronomicon, remember?
Yeah, but let's just do one on his life.
Okay.
What made him tick?
Let's do it.
Oh.
Wow, this is making me really annoyed. I kind of want to get off.
Physics
Close it.
paper, or written by a legitimate physicist, that explains how certain events in Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu can be explained away by quantum physics.
Really?
Yeah, it's specifically a gravitational lensing.
Huh.
Yeah.
To explain what Cthulhu is, or?
No, like what happened to this guy who went mad and described this crazy place that he went and stumbled upon in the South Pacific, and then came back and wrote about it. They were like, well, actually, wait a minute. What he's talking about is a quantum bubble.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's like like he works out math and formulas for explaining all this.
Yeah.
And but the rest of it is really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but probably look up the physics of the Call of Cthulhu, and I'm sure it'll bring it up.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
That's awesome.
So, what are some of the big problems you're going to run into, Chuck, aside from getting lost or running out of light?
Hypothermia. All right. Always a concern when you're cold and wet. Like I said earlier, flooding of passages, which I was worried about the whole time.
Yeah.
Slipping, falling. I was slipping all over the place. It's going to happen in these muddy caves. And, I just sort of slid and tried not to beat my face up off the rock.
Right.
But I definitely got bumps and bruises.
I'll bet.
And I was really sore the next day. It was like mountain climbing, except underground, and the mountain was slick and muddy.
Yeah.
That's basically kind of what it felt like rock climbing.
Yeah.
It's not what I thought it was going to be. Once again, can't stress that enough. It's not a stroll.
I ate my bologna sandwich by 10 a.m.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But super fun. And like I said, when you come out, man, it's so weird. Once you've been underground for that long, when you come out to the real world, everything's just like hyper colorful and bright and just weird. And it's like, man, there's a whole different world down there that most people don't know about.
Nice.
I highly encourage it. Just be careful.
Yeah, I think that's good advice.
Is there anything else in here?
Always make sure that several people above ground know where you went, know where you're going, know when you expect to be back.
Yeah.
And if somebody does get hurt, never leave that person alone.
Right.
A couple of people have to stay with them. A couple of people have to go topside. The people who go topside need to leave some of their supplies and light and stuff and water back with the people who are hanging out with the injured person.
Yeah.
They need to know exactly where the injured person is.
Oh my god, this game is pissing me off really bad right now.
Right.
And they also need to remember to take the car keys with them.
Oh, yes.
Really kind of important.
You don't want to get all the way out there and be like,
can you imagine?
Left the keys in there.
Yeah.
So.
And then, like you said, if you ever get lost, you don't want to panic. You want to stay put. You want to rely on your plan, your backup plan, which was letting a bunch of people know that you were supposed to have been home 2 hours ago and it worked.
That's right. And there are thousands of caves in the U.S., many of which are very explorable. Just do your research beforehand. Go with someone that knows what they're doing. Yeah. There are more extreme caves around the world that are very cool to look at. Ones that you actually can skydive into, or not skydive, but base jump into.
Yeah.
Boy, I can't imagine skydiving into one.
I think I've seen a video of people base jumping into this. Sotano de las Golondrinas.
Yeah, I think Planet Earth, the Discovery show, had that.
Okay, yeah, that's what I saw.
It's way cool.
Yeah.
And then, like you talked about, the cenotes, those are very cool too. Just be careful. Have we said that enough?
I don't know.
I don't think you can because, like I said, once you get there, you realize they're just a bunch of dummies, no matter what. They're ill-prepared. Locals that are like, I've been down here before.
Well, if you want to learn more about caving, you can type in spelunking in the search bar at howstuffworks.com. SPELUNKING. It won't bring up this article. I said spelunking, which means, of course, it's time for listener mail.
I'm going to call this Pakistani pizza. We did a pizza podcast, and we got lots and lots and lots of feedback on that. I knew that was going to be one of those. Very ubiquitous that people love to talk about. And this is from, and I'm probably going to butcher your name. Sorry, buddy.
Dang. I like to see that. I like the corner shots right now.
He said that he listened to PizzaCast and
rare that I get to see him.
But... on pizza in Pakistan. He's originally from Orlando, but currently lives in Karachi for university. And he said, here when you order pizza, you don't really order toppings, but you order a specific flavor. Although if you're at a pizza place, you can order specific toppings. They'll do pizza. Pizza Hut calls it. Though they are a little less cooperative when you order for delivery, apparently in Pakistan. So he said your pizza will most likely have some form of chicken on it. And then, of course, there's no ham because it's a Muslim country. Yeah. Pizza Hut alone serves chicken tikka, chicken curry, chicken fajita, Bahari chicken, Afghan tikka, and the spicier fajita Sicilian, as well as the veggie, shawarma, pepperoni, and a couple of other different meat flavors.
That's so good.
Chicken tikka pizza in Pakistan. Here's the kicker for me, guys. Not only do they offer their usual stuffed crust with the rope of cheese, they also serve beefy Sikh kebab stuffed crust.
Yes.
Wow. Papa John's.
I wanted to make sure everyone understands what you just said. He said that they offer a pizza with a crust stuffed with kebab.
With beef kebab.
That sounds delightful.
It does. Papa John's offers a more traditional American pizza menu with their various pseudo-Italian names, including chicken Florentine. Domino's flavors in Pakistan are a little more mainstream American, while they do serve chicken tikka, as well as something called Golden Feast, or something to that effect, which, as far as I know, involves corn, pineapple, and probably chicken. Along with corporate giants, there are plenty of local chains, oddly generic sounding names, including Pizza Place, Pizza Point, Pizzo, California Pizza, what's going on? Pizzo. Unfortunately, my university and dorm are located on the outskirts of town, not in the ideal neighborhoods of these places. We usually don't deliver, but I suppose that's fine. I don't order pizza very much here. It's Pakistani pizza. It's kind of small and a bit too cakey and very super bready. But it fills you up, and you never leave hungry. I just had a fairly tasty contraption from Pizza Point around 5 hours ago for dinner. I can still feel it in my throat. Lesson learned. Do not go to bed in the morning and sleep until the evening and order excess food. Anyways, love the show. Lots of love, that is. Nabiha, see it.
Thanks a lot. That's what you did. That's all. That's what you did. Yeah. See it. Like Saeed.
Maybe just Saeed.
I bet it's Saeed. We'll find out. Nabiha, right?
Yep.
Thanks a lot for writing in. Good luck with your studies.
Pizza.
Yeah, if you're in a foreign land and you're listening to us and you have some 411, as Nabiha pointed out, Nabiha, right? We want to hear from it. We want to hear about it from you. You can tweet to us at SYSK Podcast. You can join us on Facebook.com/StuffYouShouldKnow. And you can send us an email to stuffpodcast@howstuffworks.com.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio's How Stuff Works. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
Hey friends, this year getting a head start on the holidays doesn't mean just putting up your lights before Thanksgiving. It means shopping and shipping early too. FedEx is expecting a record number of packages will be shipped this holiday. It's going to be a shipping marathon, also known as the Shipathon. FedEx is training harder than ever to deliver packages quickly and safely. So, make sure you shop and ship early this season. Visit FedEx.com/holiday guide to learn more.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
Yeah,
Stuff you shouldn't know.
they're all the shooting badges are done, so that's good.
We weren't working. Let's go.
Quick story, since we've on short stuff, I'll make it 20 seconds.
Okay.
I got out of the shower today and I almost went and put on a suit just to walk into the kitchen and make Emily mad.
Right.
But it wasn't worth the effort, so I was like, I told her the joke. I said, so just imagine I did that.
Right. That's good enough.
So Cape Town, yeah, we did a show, an episode on circus sideshows way back, and it's a really good one. And
I don't know if anybody's done any tests on blinders yet. I'd really like to know that. Let's try Google. One dude said Hall of Fame blinders is the best badge in 2K. Doubt that, but I mean, either way, I wasn't counting on getting volume shooter because volume shooter is more of an offline badge. So it is a little bit odd that I didn't count for like getting these badges later on because that's 3 badges. I guess I could take off hotshot or something at some point. It's not like hotshot's super needed for me. I mean, it's not a bad thing, obviously, but as far as just wreck, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Because I'm definitely going to want a Hall of Fame catch and shoot and Hall of Fame corner specialist. That's 2 badges. So do you take 2 off hotshot for the fuck of it? Or because you ain't taking it off hot zone hunter, you're not taking off catch and shoot or green machine or deadeye. They're all useful. Blinders is arguable. I haven't seen any like actual test on blinders. I've just seen like, oh, it's the greatest ever type of thing. It's like, okay. Like, show me some data, not just, hey, I have this clickbait video. You should click on this clickbait video. And I'm just not into that. Either way, I don't see anything.
Episode, but
I don't care.
these things can very much seem like exploitation of people with disabilities, and on one hand, they certainly were. Sure. But on the other hand, we found out through research, a lot of these people, it's the only way they could make money. A lot of them found love and community. And so it is very much something that is in the gray area as far as, when this was going on. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think that was really good, Chuck, because I remember our, what did we call them, sideshow performers, or was Freaks used in the title of that episode?
I don't remember. I don't think we did.
But it was a really good one. And I remember I just saw Freaks, the 1930 movie, the other day, and apparently a lot of people from Giptown who hadn't settled there quite yet, but soon would, were in that movie as well.
Yeah, for sure. So we're talking about Gibsonton, Florida, which is near Tampa, and it is on the the Alafia or the Alafia River. Do you know which one it is?
No, I hang out on the east side when I'm down here. That's west side. we don't get along very well.
Well, I see you flashing your west side.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So. You couldn't even see me. You knew that I did that when I said west side. And it was all jumbled too. Like, it's just basically all fingers were splayed on each hand, and then I put it up against my chest.
I've been recording a lot of these Skype things now with Movie Crush, and I always do video, and they're always surprised when they ask about us, and I'm like, we don't do video, mainly because my notes get in the way, but I was like, after this long, all I need is that guy in my ear holes.
Sure, a little bit of this. Right up in your ear. That's all I need.
So, Gibsonton, if you went to that town in the 1950s and walked around a bit, you would think, what is going on here? There are lions and tigers in that backyard. There is a restaurant run by an 8-foot-tall man and his wife, a woman with no legs.
Yep.
And there's Lobster Boy, and there is Monkey Girl. And these are all sort of the unfortunate names given to them on their sideshow tours.
Yes, sometimes by their adopted parents, who would be the promoters, the sideshow or circus promoters, who would basically have legally adopted them. And in some cases, that was actually a step up for some of the kids. But yes, if you did walk around what came to be called Gid Town, it did seem a little different. I mean, just the fact that people had like monkeys and elephants and lions and tigers in their backyard, it's different than most other towns. The sideshow rides parked in people's driveways is a little different too. Apparently, this town was that way because it was first settled by the giant hat woman they called themselves, but their names were Al and Jeannie Tomaini, which is great. Jeannie Tomaini, it just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, that's great.
But they first showed up there in the 30s.
See how we do without volume shooter? See how it's
This
feeling?
place is kind of cool. We're not judged. We're not treated differently.
I like volume shooter for offline play for sure, but it's not needed for rec. Shouldn't be shooting enough shots for it to even impact you.
If you are a carnival or circus performer.
Yeah, I think they got the notion that it was a pretty sleepy little town, and in the 1960s, they had about 100 actual sideshow performers and about 1,000 carnies that would live there when, it just became a friendly place for them all to live, and they were all kind of a big family, so they congregated there. And I think the town was like, you know what? These are great residents. They pay their state taxes. Wait a minute, it's Florida.
Right.
That's why they're living here. There are no state taxes. Although I don't know if that was the deal back then, but or has it always been the deal?
I don't know. I know there's no state income tax, but there's like the property taxes are much higher. Like they make it up in other ways for sure.
Right. They get you one way or the other.
That elephant tax is really steep.
But they realized, hey, we could use these residents, and they're only here part time, if you know what I'm saying. So that's going to be great too. And so they made, like you said, these business ordinances that made it kind of a friendly place for carnies.
Yep. So I say we take a break, come back and talk a little more about Gid Town.
Let's do it. My friend, more than 75% of identity theft victims who had accounts opened in their name did not find out they had been victimized from their bank or their credit card company.
Yeah, so don't be one of the 75% who didn't check more places identity theft could be hiding. Get LifeLock identity theft protection.
That's right. LifeLock sees certain threats you could miss if you're only monitoring your credit and bank statements, and they'll alert you if they find something that could be suspicious.
Yeah, plus, if you become a victim of identity theft, a U.S.-based identity restoration specialist dedicated to your case will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but LifeLock can help protect your personal information.
Early?
So join now and save up to 25%
Early?
off the first year.
Oh man, that's a really bad animation if that's early. If anything, it should have been slightly late.
For 25% off.
That's tough.
Hey, Chuck, did you know that McDonald's, which you tend to think of as a pretty huge global restaurant, is actually a local one too?
That's right. Each McDonald's is owned and operated by people who live where that McDonald's is. When you eat at McDonald's, you're actually supporting American businesses, maybe even your own neighbor's business.
Yeah, you're also supporting farmers, and you're also supporting the Ronald McDonald House Charities. And Ronald McDonald House Charities give families with sick kids a home away from home when they have to travel far for the care that they need, which is a pretty great charity, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, they've done great work over the years, and the franchisees also care about their community. They give back by helping first responders. They have a program called Thank You Meal Program, which provides free food for essential healthcare workers and first responders. And when you own and operate a McDonald's, you make a promise to serve the community where you do business. And that's what those franchisees do every day.
Which is why they say, Chuck, McDonald's serving here. What's the famous quote? Chuck, don't try it, Jake. This is Gid Town.
I think that's it.
I don't even think I got the first part right.
No, you didn't.
Jake, stop. This is Gid Town. Don't do it.
I think it's, hey, get down, I'm walking here.
That's it. That's from Midnight Cowboy, right?
Midnight Cowboy, yes, it is. Just a moment.
Right. So,
Nice work. So back to Gip Town. This town, like we said, by the 1960s was booming with carnival folk. They loved living there. It was a kind of a lovely community for them. And we mentioned earlier that they sometimes found love. We mentioned the tall man and the short lady who traveled as the world's strangest married couple. It's actually a very sweet story.
yeah, like he was over 8 feet tall, Chuck, and she, not having any legs, was about 2.5 feet tall.
Hit him at the knees.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe like mid-shin, actually. Who knows?
No, it was knee. I saw a picture.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. So the Tomainis, they toured as the world's strangest married couple. They had kids too, and their daughter remembered that they would leave for the summer and go make some money and come back to Gip Town and run the fish camp, Giants Fish Camp, which is one of the places that they owned, which was very legendary, but apparently isn't there anymore.
No, there's a memorial there now. I watched a couple of short YouTube videos about Gip Town, and there's still remnants of, and there's still some performers. About 200 carnival people still live there, but there are little remnants of that past world. Every now and then, you'll see some broken down old rusted rides in like a vacant lot, or maybe a themed restaurant that's closed down. So Gip Town's about 45 miles from Sarasota, which is where the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus winters.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was, and we've talked about Florida in general having sort of circus stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In general, so I think it all just sort of made sense.
Right, and I don't know why Gip Town. I think it was just that the Tomainis happened to set up shop there and found that the people were taller and friendly, and it just kind of spread from there. So it had the heyday from, I'd say, the 30s till maybe the 80s or so. And this article from
Oh my God, I'm so sick of that shit. I want ball handling on them literally just because of those two things. The fact that it's supposed to control. I'm sick of talking with this podcast on. Never mind. I'll get off.
This seems exploitive, and people say, right, it probably is. But let's not ask the performers, let's just decide for them. But finally, in 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed, and all of a sudden, working in a sideshow was not the only place you could get a job if you had some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know, physical malady?
Abnormality, maybe?
Yeah, I'm not sure the right way to say that these days.
I'm not either, but if you were a sideshow performer, you could now get a job anywhere thanks to the ADA.
That's right, which is great. The Lobster Boy, as he was known, Grady Stiles, he was known as the Lobster Boy because, and here's the deal, and we talked about this in the Sideshow Performer podcast episode, is that you got into these things because you were born with a condition almost invariably. And they would give you a name like Lobster Boy when, in fact, you had a real-life condition. Which one was that?
Ectrodactyly?
Right, where it appears like you have two fingers only that sort of look like claws.
It looks a lot like lobster claws, actually.
Yeah, and Justin Bieber's wife actually has a form of this because she has a pinky that's sort of misshapen, and she has just come out and said, all right, let's look at it and talk about it because here it is. But he actually was a terrible person.
Yeah.
And he was murdered. He was an abusive alcoholic. He killed his first wife and was sentenced to home incarceration because there was no prison that could care for him.
Wait, he killed his... No, I think he killed his daughter's fiancé.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, daughter's fiancé. Home incarcerated, quit drinking, got married again, and started drinking again. And allegedly, he was either knocked off by a carny for $1,500 paid for by his current wife, or the neighbor just came over and took care of business because they knew what a bad guy he was.
Yeah, I think like he was paid from what I saw, like that amount of money. I didn't see any other alternate theories, but they shot him twice in the head, and he died like sitting in his chair. And yeah, he wasn't a very good guy from what I saw either. So
not to trash his name.
No, but that was like the big scandal in Gip Town. For the most part, it was like a really peaceful, happy place where if you were a sideshow performer, like you could go feel at home and be yourself. And one of the cutest things that I saw was that another couple that found love, Priscilla the monkey girl, who had hypertrichosis, which is she had like a full head of hair, like a hairdo as an infant, and it just kept going from there. She had a beard. She was like just had tons of hair. She married Emmett, the alligator skin man, who had a healthy case of ichthyosis, which is thick, scaly skin all over your body. And they were married for so long that they had their 50th wedding anniversary at a local club, the Showman's Club there, back in 1988. Isn't that the cutest thing?
It is, and I love the idea of Gip Town, that these people came together on the outskirts of society, and now hipsters are moving there.
Yeah, that's the least surprising part of this entire episode.
That's right.
One other thing, if you want to see something very cute, go look up a baby photo of Priscilla the monkey girl. She was adorable.
Agreed.
Well, that's it for Short Stuff, everybody. Short Stuff is out.
You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio's How Stuff Works. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. This episode is brought to you by Trafficked with Mariana Van Zeller, premiering Wednesdays at 9, 8 Central on National Geographic. Investigative journalist Van Zeller dives into the most dangerous black markets on the planet, from hydro traffickers and international scammers to counterfeiters and gun runners, to get inside access into the world's trillion-dollar shadow economy. After each episode, check out the Trafficked podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Are you ready for the holidays? Because FedEx has been training for months. This year, it's expected that a record number of packages will be shipped. I'm watching this. So I'm getting to see it.
Yeah, watch Passive Glory instead.
What was that? Is that the one about Barry Lyndon?
No, that was Barry Lyndon.
Oh, okay.
That's great too. But if you're gunning for early Kubrick, I would say Killer's Kiss if you want to go super early, and then Paths of Glory, which is the other one he did with Kirk Douglas, the World War I trench warfare film. It's great.
Okay.
And Barry Lyndon, which is just a masterpiece.
Wasn't that Ryan O'Neal?
Yeah, boy, it's good.
He was in one of my favorite movies of all time, Paperman.
That's right. And one of my favorite movies, The Main Event.
What was that?
That was a rom-com he did. He played a boxer opposite Barbra Streisand.
Was she a boxer?
No,
Okay.
It was not great. I mean, it was fine. It's one of the 70s rom-coms,
Gotcha.
but not one of my favorite movies by any stretch.
Speaking of rom-coms, but minus the rom part, just the com, heavy on the com, have you seen Eliza Schlesinger's sketch show on Netflix?
No.
It is very
What
good.
is that? How do I know that name?
She's gotten pretty big as a stand-up in the last couple of years. If you haven't discovered her yet, you're welcome. She's really great.
Looking her up now, which is something I don't normally do. I don't think I recognize her.
Okay, well, she's got some stand-up specials that are definitely worth watching, and then she just debuted a season of a sketch comedy show that's pretty good. Definitely worth seeing.
Let's check that out.
Ryan O'Neal's not in it yet, but like I said, it's just one season.
I want to shout out Live Science, by the way. We used How Stuff Works article on Spartacus and this great Live Science article on Spartacus. The real Spartacus, not Kirk Douglas.
I also read an article from a guy named Kenneth
Spartacus?
Kenneth P. Czech, C-C-E-C-H, like the Czech Republic, I guess.
Okay.
Maybe that's where his family's from. Who knows? But he wrote an article back in the 90s about Spartacus that was very exhaustive, that was helpful. And then there's also a historian named Barry Strauss, who I read some interviews and articles.
I'm not getting tired, I'll tell you that
Good of a
much.
specialist.
Wow.
So shout out to those cats as well.
Yeah, so the story of Spartacus, if you've watched the Kubrick film, it is not, I mean, there are bits of truth in there, but it's definitely not some real, truthful biopic of his life. Good movie, but we're going to give you the real story of Spartacus's life, which is that of the leader of an uprising of slaves who said, Rome, we're not going to take it anymore.
No, we ain't going to take it.
That's right.
We're not going to take it
Anymore.
Listen.
That's the original title.
I think we met that guy. Well, actually, we passed that guy backstage once, remember?
That's right. What show was that?
The Whatever Show?
I think it was Jet Probst, wasn't it?
No. It was the Whatever Show with...
Oh, was it with, was that Martha Stewart's daughter?
Yeah, but she has a first name.
Alexis.
and Jennifer.
Right, Jennifer and Alexis.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Remember we were on TV every now and then?
Yeah, we'd be on that. We were on Jeff Probst. Do you remember the Jeff Probst show? He was interviewing us, and he zoned out so hard. I almost said, like, Jeff, are you okay? While we were talking.
Yeah, and we used to, occasionally we'd be on CNN. They would have us on to do, like, talking head stuff.
Yes.
Then,
Yes.
everyone just sort of stopped caring about us.
Oh,
we got really popular podcasting.
Yeah.
And they just all said, well, whatever, we don't need this mess.
Yeah. That's okay, though.
No, I don't want to be on CNN or any news network.
We were on the Soledad O'Brien show. We were interviewed by Christine Roman. She's like super legit journalist. It was pretty neat.
So is Jeff Probst. Right. The tribe has spoken.
Yep. And they said, who else?
Isn't that what he said? The tribe has spoken?
Yeah. And then
He'd
kick you in the seat of your pants on the way out.
And you would think, God, because what a relief to be kicked off that garbage show.
And it was good the first season or two, I think.
I think I did watch the first couple of seasons. But, I'm not going to yuck someone's yum. There's probably still Survivor shows going on.
Oh, no, there are. I think the most recent season, they brought together, like, past champions, or past people who got kicked off, one of the two, and said, who's going to win this time?
Yeah, the only one I do like that is Top Chef, which has still maintained its integrity after all these years and never became dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a little while, I did that. Discovery had a show, I cannot remember the name of it, where it was like a post-apocalyptic scenario where they would put people in this area, and like occasionally they would send in these Mad Max type people to mess with them and take their stuff. and they had to build things and defend themselves. God, what was that called? It was really awful and great.
Were the people naked? Because I can tell you the name of the show if they were naked.
I have watched more than one episode of Naked and Afraid.
I haven't. Did they just like blur out their the parts where their bathing suit covers?
No, they're completely naked and it just shows dong out the whole time.
It's like the Voyager Gold Record.
It's blurred out, and kind of the first thing that the ladies do is fashion some sort of Eve-like covering on her bits, and then the men either do that or they're just like, hey, whatever. He's the guy at the gym that has a towel like over his shoulder but not around his waist.
Right. Oh yeah, that guy.
That guy
wearing tennis shoes with no socks.
Yes, aka men who were proud of their genitals.
Dong out. So I'm guessing Spartacus is probably dong out.
Oh sure.
He was where are we back to Spartacus now, you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So Spartacus was this guy who everyone knows the name of. And you may even know that he was a gladiator. Maybe you know that he led a slave revolt. But this guy was really nuanced, really detailed, and actually, even after a couple thousand years of history, analysis, falling in and out of favor of different cultures that come and go, he stands the test of time pretty well, even after being draped in, a lot of people's hang-ups and, held up as a prime example of the ideals of whatever group are revering him. Even after you strip all that stuff away and look at the historical figure, he was still a pretty interesting and kind of upstanding guy as far as leaders of slave revolts go.
That's right, and that's a good way to put it. He was Thracian, which means he is from Thrace. We don't know a ton about his early life because they just didn't bother recording the history of nobody's slaves in ancient Rome. Why would they? It took him to do remarkable things for historians to take notice with their quill and paper. And the Romans, at the time, this was an area, Thrace was in southeast Europe, where they were always trying to subjugate this area of Europe in 1st century BC. And it was just not a good scene if you weren't sort of an upper echelon Roman at the time.
No, Thrace was, I get the impression that it was not really one to live under Roman yoke, but I also had the impression that they were in league with the Romans, but it was kind of like one of those, we can either be an ally of yours or you can conquer us kind of thing. Right. So I think there was a bit of a tense truce, and there was I don't think any contemporary text about Spartacus is still around today. Most of the earliest stuff we know about him comes from, and the earliest, the 1st century CE, and he was living in the last century, or the 1st century BCE. So people were writing about him 100, 200 years later. But one of those old texts says that he wasn't born a slave, and that he actually was a Thracian soldier who was an ally who worked in the auxiliary or fought in the auxiliary for Rome. So he was a soldier under Roman command at some point.
I wonder if any good face scan creations have come out yet. I doubt it. They're all clickbait that I've seen. But you never know. So like 2K. Could just put All this seems to be Madden right now for some reason. I want nothing to do with Madden. A lot of Madden videos. Jesus. Yeah, all this shit looks like bullshit. It's kind of crazy that the fucking last gen face creations are like shit tons better. They nailed the LeBron face creations on last gen. I loved it. PS5 though, nope. And none of these are worth making. I don't want any of them. This dude says Mike Tyson face creation. No way. I have to click on that. Guess it kind of looks like him. But you're not going to be able to do his teeth. It's just going to be like... You're not going to be able to do the age to his face. I mean, I guess it kind of looks like him though. A little bit surprised you don't see like LeBron ones or Bronny ones yet. Nobody has the artisticness. You have to wait till somebody that's an actual artist to create one, other than the same one they all keep repeating, which is just literally one from last gen copied. And it's like, it doesn't work. It's last gen. It looks like shit. Yeah, this is a big waste of time. I need to quit it. Look at it all I want. It's just a waste of time.
On this path to him becoming a bandit and a criminal.
Yeah, he was like the guy in the new Star Wars movies.
I need to quit shooting 3-pointers too, I
The
guess.
guy that was a stormtrooper and then said, you know what, I'm not a stormtrooper anymore. I want to kill stormtroopers.
Oh, okay, I've seen the. What is it? The Last Jedi one?
Yeah, that's one.
Okay, so but that was like a side story, right? That wasn't one of the actual canon.
No, so the Last Jedi was. They made 3 main ones a part of the canon, and then Star Wars fans, you have words for all these things. Rogue One was the one that was outside, and then the Han Solo movie was outside, and then outside canon is not part of the whatever, those movies.
So Rogue One is the one I'm thinking of. That was really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one quite a bit.
The other ones, I don't think I've been able to make it through a single one yet.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I like it, but they're Star Wars movies. I don't expect greatness. I just think they're kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I love the first 3.
Yeah, sure.
But not the first 3 sequentially. You know, the first 3 that were released ever.
You liked 1 through 3 sequentially, or not sequentially?
Yeah.
Good God.
I'm talking about Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
It's the best of the bunch.
All right, so he's like the stormtrooper guy in these new movies that is no longer a stormtrooper and wants to kill stormtroopers. He gets captured at one point, and he gets sold into slavery in Rome. And then there was this man that, I love this article, says a man referred to at times as Vaccia. I guess that's his name, or maybe he just had a bunch of names. But the upshot is this guy had a gladiator school in Capua, about 120 miles southeast of Rome, and that's where Spartacus was sent to train to be a gladiator.
It's in Hawaii.
Right, and I feel like we should take a break and get our Star Wars facts straight and come back.
Oh, goodness, okay.
All right, we'll be right back. Hey friends, this year getting a head start on the holidays doesn't mean just putting up your lights before Thanksgiving. It means shopping and shipping early too. FedEx is expecting a record number of packages will be shipped this holiday. It's going to be a shipping marathon, also known as the Shipathon. FedEx is training harder than ever to deliver packages quickly and safely. So make sure you shop and ship early this season. Visit FedEx.com/holidayguide to learn more.
It takes a lot of grit to serve your country, and the lessons that military service members learn in uniform are valuable no matter which path they've chosen. That's why T-Mobile is supporting iHeartRadio's Vets You Should Know podcast, sharing inspiring stories of dedication, perseverance, and camaraderie from U.S. veterans.
So when I went to that basic camp for the Army, I was told that my voice did matter and that I needed to use it. So from that day on, I had to rebuild myself, really. And it was those members of the military, my friends, the drill sergeants, who really helped me regain my voice and regain my confidence so that I could be a voice for others going forward.
T-Mobile is proud to support iHeartRadio's Vets You Should Know podcast and honor all those who have served our country this Veterans Day and always. Check out the Vets You Should Know podcast, available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Then learn more about T-Mobile's ongoing support of military and veteran communities, including career assistance, community support, and discounts for active service members, veterans, and military families at T-Mobile.com/military. T-Mobile, ready to serve those who serve.
So when we left off, Chuck, Boba Fett had left the army. You know, I'm not even going to do that to us.
Have you watched Mandalorian?
I know, huh?
It's good.
The one with Amy Sedaris?
Yeah, she is the Mandalorian.
She's in it, though. She gets to, like, hang out with Baby Yoda, I think.
No, she is in it, and it's I love seeing her in anything, but it does take me out of the moment just a bit. But it's a fun show. It's kind of like the A-Team. You'd like it.
Oh, well, yeah, I probably would like it.
It's like a adventure of the week type of thing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I might actually check that out. I might look at it. I started Ozark, and I'm like, man, this is really dark.
Yeah, where are you now?
5th episode, I think, season 1.
Oh, okay. So
Just
you didn't burn through season 1 or anything?
No, I've been taking it slow.
Like that.
Yeah, you've been taking it in small doses here and there.
Yeah, I think I'm through like the first 4 of the latest season.
Okay.
And by the way, correction, I think I said it was Lake Hartwell. It is Lake Allatoona.
Oh, okay, that makes way more sense. Because I was thinking, is that Allatoona?
Yeah, Allatoona's, you know where Allatoona is.
Mm-hmm.
Hartwell's up.
For Davis.
Yeah, Allatoona, or Hartwell's up near South Carolina. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, because I have friends. We have friends who have a place on Hartwell, and I was like, I don't recognize it. But then I thought I probably wouldn't recognize just about any lake. So I just kind of went with Hartwell as mine. Or yes. From what I learned, there is no such thing as a natural lake in the state of Georgia.
That's right. They're all, and most of them are from the Georgia Power Company.
Yeah, it's so creepy to me sometimes too when you're swimming in a lake. If you start thinking about what's beneath your feet, it makes you want to get back on the boat sometimes.
You mean like a former town?
Yeah, town or the woods or something. Yeah, car.
Oh man, how do we get so off track?
Okay, so we're talking about Spartacus, who has he left or was drummed out of the army, became a bandit, is captured, and when he's captured, he's taken to that gladiator school that you talked about, owned by a man sometimes sometimes referred to as Badia. And the thing about gladiators is, thanks to movies like Gladiator or I don't know, other movies about gladiators, Airplane, the original Airplane,
Right.
We have this conception of gladiators as kind of like this awesome thing. But if you were living in Rome around the turn of the last 2 millennia ago, you did not think of gladiators very highly. There were some that rose to incredible prominence, like rock stars, sport heroes, all mixed together. Today, the gladiator could rise to that level, but it was incredibly rare. For the most part, they were criminals, prisoners of war, slaves, and they were considered the lowliest of the low, where their owner, in this case Badia, who owned Spartacus, basically said, the only way for me to make money off of you is to make you fight for these gladiator battles, and either bet on you or license you or something like that. And that was it. But you were like, as far as even the cast of slaves went, you were at the bottom if you were a gladiator.
Yeah, and gladiators, if you've seen the movies, it's almost always depicted as a fight to the death. That's not necessarily the case. You can kind of tap out, or if they drew blood, sometimes that would be the end. But if they drew blood, that might also be the end of you pre-antibiotics. Either way, you might end up dead, but it wasn't necessarily always a fight to the death. And like you said, sometimes they would, if you were a great gladiator and a great warrior, they didn't know what your face looked like, but you had this cool mask that you were identified by, kind of like wrestling or something like that.
Right.
Or I guess the lucha libre, the ones who always have the mask.
Yeah.
But I can't believe we did an episode on that. It's so funny.
It was a good one, too.
But you could be, if you won a lot and you had a cool helmet, you could be a pretty big deal to the point where you might have slaves taking care of you and you might lead a bit of the better life.
Right.
But you're still owned by someone else.
Yeah, you were a slave. You were a prisoner of war. You were a criminal. But when you were taken to gladiator school, it wasn't like you were just kept there and then you were thrown into the ring to fight. Like, you were trained. You were put on a diet. You were basically put through boot camp, and you were introduced to the specifics of certain types of gladiatorial combat. Apparently, there were a handful of different types, and one type of gladiator only fought one or two other types of gladiators. And the type that Spartacus was a murmillo, which meant that he fought with a helmet, a very long, tall shield, kind of like the Roman centurions used, and then a short sword called a gladius. And that's what he would have fought with. But there were other kinds of gladiators, too. I ran across a super cool one, the Retiarius. They would have a trident and a net and a dagger. So like those gladiators that like fought with a net. I think it might have been in Mad Max or something like that.
Yeah.
That's based on an actual type of gladiator that used to fight back in the day. And again, here in the 21st century, we can sit there and think like, wow, this is really interesting stuff. But you have to stop for a second and think, these people were being forced against their will into fights to the death sometimes in front of spectators for the sheer bloodlust of the crowds. That was it. And you can't really forget that, because it really puts you in the mind of somebody like Spartacus, who has been captured as prisoner, potentially unjustly according to an ancient text, and being forced into this life of fighting, sometimes to the death, for the joy of the wealthy crowds who came out to see it.
Alright, I gotta
That's right,
start
and that's
over.
why Spartacus
It's annoying me too much.
and said,
I'm
guys,
sorry.
we're here at
It's a
Gladiator
waste. It's a
University.
huge waste of EC. It's a waste of everything, but I'm so annoyed right now. I'm in such a bad mood that if I don't start this over, I'm gonna go to bed after that game.
Do you want Mom
And
to
what do you say
keep
we
these
get
if
the
you
group of us
use them?
together, like maybe 70 of us, we get the heck out of here, and let's do it, guys. And they all said, that's a great idea. I don't want to go die in a ring. So they got together in 73 BCE. They hijacked a caravan that just happened to have a bunch of gladiator weapons and armor. And they said, hey, you know what we are? We're a little army troop all of a sudden.
Think about the luck that took. Like, they broke out, they overpowered their guards with meat cleavers that they stole from the kitchen, and broke out. And as they were breaking out, they ran across a supply truck of gladiator armor and weapons.
I got the feeling that was targeted. That was not the case.
No, it happened to be coming in as they were leaving, and they were like, oh, we'll take this, or else they encountered it on the road headed to the gladiator school. And the timing was really fortunate.
Well, at any rate, they got all this gear, and all of a sudden they were kitted up.
Yeah.
And I think one of the people he was with his wife, this lady, that sounds very interesting. Like we said, we don't know a lot about the actual historical record. We don't know her actual name. But Plutarch was a writer who wrote that Spartacus's wife was a prophetess who was possessed by ecstatic frenzies that were part of the worship of the god Dionysus.
Yeah.
Which, you know what that means.
What is going on? I'm really gonna have to get offline.
And she apparently was.
Are you fucking kidding me that I'm fucking sitting here fucking missing? I don't even want to be fucking shooting fucking 3-pointers to begin with. Only reason I'm fucking doing it is because you can't let me fucking go inside consistently. Fuck you. Piece of fucking shit, money grabbing, cock sucking fucking game. Trash. This whole franchise has just become trash. And it just makes me mad every time I sit there and think about it. The fact that I'm sitting here spending weeks, sitting here fucking around on the motherfucking car. My god. Like, it's just stupid. It's really stupid. Spend hundreds of fucking dollars on this game is what people do to avoid doing what I'm doing, which is having to put the fucking work in, which the work is so much longer now because they just nerf it into the ground every chance they get to say we're gonna go ahead and suck some more fucking money out of this goddamn game. They're gonna do it. Yeah, I'm fucking done. We're restarting again. God, I'm just itching to throw this fucking controller through my TV right now.
They had no idea what was coming, just like a century from then. I like it. I think it's amazing.
But Mount Vesuvius at this time, what we're saying is it was lovely, and it was lush, and you could farm there. It was very fertile. It was covered with vines, and they were down there training, and eventually Rome takes a little bit of notice, although they weren't seriously worried yet. They were hiding out, and they were training, and one of his co-leaders, this guy Crixus, who kind of factors in as one of his big co-heads of state, I guess, and Oenomaus, Oenomaus.
No, I think I had it the first time. There was like an extra syllable in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that's what you said it the second time sounds better.
We'll just stick to that.
Okay.
They would go around and raid.
Now all of a sudden I can't hit a 3-pointer.
Eventually, and we'll see later, they got so popular that they could even get non-slaves to join up in the rebellion. And Rome was not super worried. They kind of heard about what was going on, but they were busy. They were fighting in Spain. They were fighting Crete. They were fighting in Southeast Europe. And this little ragtime group of former slaves wasn't that big of a deal.
Oh my fucking god. This is fucking stupid. The fucking cock-sucking fucking animations are so far different that I go slightly late, adjust just a little bit, and I'm way the fuck slightly early because of the fact that the fucking animation is completely different.
Is like a very high up elected official, right under council, which is I think the highest elected official in ancient Rome. So they were really super high up. And actually, they might have been laterals to the councils. I'm not sure, but it was a very important person. But I get the impression that he was a very kind of low on the scale of important people, because they sent him with a few Roman soldiers and said, hey, when you get to Vesuvius, just recruit some locals to go fight this band of runaway slaves and be back by dinner time, please.
Yeah, it was, love the National Guard, not knocking them, but it kind of reminded me of, sort of sending in the National Guard to take care of something rather than the Marines storming the beach.
It's basically the story of John Rambo in First Blood.
Trust me, I thought of that more than once. R.I.P. Brian Dennehy, by the way.
When?
Like last week.
What? How did I not hear that?
I think it's just sort of been under the radar with everything going on.
Was it from coronavirus?
No, just he was like in his early 80s and just passed away.
Well, R.I.P. for sure. He was good.
But I definitely thought of Rambo a lot while I was reading this. The difference was that Spartacus had a team to aid in his uprising, and Rambo was, of course, a one-man army.
An A-team, if you will.
But at any rate, they didn't send the best of the best because they were all busy. Glaber's little army, they said, you know what, we're not even going to attack Spartacus. We'll just block off the route up to Vesuvius. We're going to pitch our tents. We're going to hang out and get drunk, and he's going to starve to death, and that's kind of going to be the end of it, so we think.
Yeah, you said Glaber. Glaber is the praetor. His name is Claudius Glaber. He sounds like an inept kind of person that you would send to take care of.
I'll send Glaber.
Exactly. His name is just too close to Glaben.
I think so.
So Glaber said, it's exactly what he said. He posted a couple of guys on the road to Vesuvius, the only road in or out up the mountain. And then the rest of the group is at camp. And so Spartacus and his band are, they know that they can't get down this rope, but they're also not about to starve at the hands of a guy named Glaber. So they actually fashion rope and rope ladder out of the vines that are growing up on Vesuvius, and they climb down the mountain to a different spot, and they come up behind the guys who are guarding the road, kill them, sneak into the Roman camp, kill all of them while they're bathing and sleeping, and have done two things. They just wiped out the soldiers of a praetor, a very high elected official.
Oh my
And
fucking
they just
god.
captured a
This
Roman
is
camp
fucking...
with all of its supplies,
Oh
all its
my
weapons,
fucking
all its
god.
armory, and these were really two really big first strikes, if you allow it.
And I will, so noted.
Thank you.
And it was a really big deal because, word gets around, and for the first time, slaves in Italy were thinking, wow, there's actually someplace we could go. It's not like in America where there were slaves in the South mainly, and they could escape to the North.
Right.
It was just like that all over Italy, so they had nowhere to go. They had no safe harbor, no quarter, if I'm allowed.
I will allow that as well.
And they said, wow, we got a place we can go. We can go join up with this guy Spartacus. He's out there sneaking up on Clavers and killing them while he's taking a bath.
Right.
And they're like, that sounds pretty good to me. I want to get in on the fun.
Yeah. I don't know if it was this historian Irwin from Murray State or if it was part of the article, but somebody says at some point and I'm sorry, not Irwin, Aaron Irvin is the name of the historian, but somebody said at some point that those slaves, because they had nowhere to go, like you were saying, but also because of the way that slave uprisings were brutally dealt with, that they very frequently didn't even require supervision, that they would, that there were whole rural areas and towns that Spartacus was moving around to, where the slaves vastly outnumbered the freed people, and they were able to sustain that disproportionate population distribution because the slaves in Rome had such little hope of any different life than what they had. And so, yeah, like you were saying, Spartacus provided hope in something different. All of a sudden, his little ragtag band of slaves and their slave uprising suddenly became a very large slave uprising. And in a really short time, they attracted something like 40,000 slaves from these rural areas up around Vesuvius and in northern Italy, I think northeastern Italy, that they would just run away. And now they had a place to go, i.e. Spartacus's camp, and they would join up there and show up with like kitchen knives and farm tools and stuff like that, and they would be trained in combat. And now all of a sudden, it goes from this ragtag band of gladiator slaves who had escaped to something that looked a lot like an actual rebellion. And that's what Rome started to think that maybe they were dealing with.
Yeah, and I get the idea is around this time that Spartacus becomes kind of an idea, even more so than an actual human being, because when the word is getting around, it's not like the newspapers had front page headlines or anything. You get these whispers and you get these stories, and the spark of hope.
Oh my fucking god!
And he's a great boss. He splits everything right down the middle.
It's getting fucking ridiculous.
Spoils equally, and he's getting non-slaves to join up, because even if you're like you might not be a slave, but if you're a very poor farmhand or something, it might look appealing all of a sudden, because you're not part of the elite Roman kind of upper echelon class.
Yeah, so the idea that he was splitting the spoils with people, like, that's huge. And apparently that stands up that basically all of the ancient sources agree, like, this guy took all this plunder and distributed it. He didn't keep it for himself. He didn't turn himself into a king. And he was running around freeing slaves. And that's one of the reasons why he did, like you said, become a hero or an idea, and a hero that still to this day groups kind of latch onto. So he's attracting more and more people. One of the ugly truths about this is that when they were going around to these small towns and these rural areas, freeing slaves, getting them to join their ranks, there was also a lot of plundering going on. They were not merciful with the slave owners who owned these big, enormous estates that they were plundering. They would engage in rape, they would engage in torture, they would engage in murder. And from what I saw, it wasn't Spartacus that was doing that he actually commanded against that, but that his army had a mind of their own.
Just fucking wow. I am more annoyed with this game right now than I have been since I literally downloaded it. The day I downloaded it, I was annoyed with it really badly, because it is a steaming pile of fucking garbage. There's no doubt about that. Everybody that's ever played it knows it's garbage. Whether you choose to ignore it because you're good at it or not, doesn't mean that it's not garbage, because everybody knows it's a money grab piece of fucking trash.
So there were bits of truth throughout, for sure.
Right.
But wow, I have not been this annoyed since then. I'm dropping the ball, walking backwards to the half court, going back court, stepping out of bounds for no fucking reason, just dropping the ball on the ground.
And they did. They sent
Just
Publius Verenius, and
I'm sick of it.
he
I'm
was
not even having any
another
fun.
traitor. So they're sending like
Hurry the
pretty
fuck
important
up.
guys along with their soldiers. And Verenius, he was almost nearly captured, which would have been enormous. He was so close to being captured that I believe Spartacus himself stole the guy's horse. He got his horse. And
How was this?
Verenius. Publius Verenius. And that was a huge black eye to Rome. That, like, not only is this, band of runaway slaves, able to engage Rome in battle, but he stole your horse and your insignia and almost got your guy. That was a big deal. And so all of these victories, with each victory, Spartacus's legend just grows, and he's able to attract more and more people. I think within a year, that historian Kenneth Check says within a year, maybe a little more than a year.
Fuck you.
There was
Fuck
as
you.
many
Fuck
possibly
you.
as
Fuck you.
125,000
Fuck you. Fuck you.
freed
Fuck you.
slaves,
Fuck
or
you.
slaves,
Fuck
escaped
you.
slaves and commoners,
Fuck you. Fuck you.
who
Fuck
joined
you.
Spartacus's
Fuck
army.
you and your
125,000.
fucking piece of shit
He started
fucking
with 70
franchise. Fuck
gladiators the year before.
you.
Yeah, 70, not 70,000.
Right.
Just to reiterate.
Yeah, no, that's worth saying.
I just
So,
don't care.
spring of
I don't care.
72 BC,
You can give me slightly legs all the time.
Spartacus has these troops. Some of them stay in the south with his buddy Crixus.
Hurry up.
And then he says,
I'm
"Rest
done
you
with this
come with me.
game.
We're gonna
We're
head toward the
fucking
Alps
done.
because it's lovely this time of
Fucking
year."
done.
And
No, thank you.
I think at the time,
I can't put up with it whenever, if you're going to bullshit me, and I'm not getting anything out of it other than VC,
Coca-Cola,
I could be doing other things.
Gnaeus, Cornelius,
I'll
Lentulus,
pass.
Claudianus.
Those are great names.
Fuck your game.
Wow.
Those guys were consuls, so they were the highest elected officials in Rome.
Yeah, they may have had as many as like 20,000 guys put together. Like, it's a serious business at this time to go take care of Spartacus.
Yeah, I think when he almost captured Verenius, that really caught Rome's attention for the first time. Unfortunately, these two consuls, what were their names again, Chuck?
Let's just call them Publicola and Claudianus.
Okay, fine. They were no better equipped to fight Spartacus either. I think by this time he hadn't come close to 125,000 people yet, but he was up to 40,000, and both of the
Peaches and Herb.
Yeah, Peaches and Herb, nice. They underestimated how many troops he'd had. They also were unaware that he had wintered in the north of Italy, and had spent the winter stealing horses and building up a cavalry unit, which they had no idea he had this. And one other thing he put to good use. So remember, this guy's potentially a Roman army veteran from Thrace, which means he's familiar with guerrilla warfare that the Thracians practiced, and conventional warfare, which the Romans practiced. And he's like commanding tens of thousands of troops to great effect. He built the cavalry, and he also, so like some of those commoners who joined up, who weren't slaves, but they were not well off and they wanted to fight the power. So they joined. They were usually like herdsmen or shepherds or something like that from local areas who knew the areas really well. So he used them as scouts. And Peaches and Herb had no idea that this band of runaways, slaves, had turned into an actual like legit army under the command of somebody who knew what they were doing. And he ate both of them alive.
Yeah, well, it actually was. It was kind of tough because Peaches went down there to the south where Crixus was and killed him with a lot of the rebels. And then Herb came in from the north of Spartacus where he was headed toward the Alps. He was ahead of him, so he came south from the north.
Right.
And he came in, and Spartacus was basically trapped between these two armies that had better equipment, better weaponry, better armor, more munitions and food and water and everything, and wine.
Right.
And they had no idea that this cavalry was waiting for him that he had been working on. It was kind of his little Trojan horse in a way. And they had never seen anything like it. And he beat Peaches, I think, or was that Herb? Now I'm a little confused.
He beat Herb.
Okay, he beat Herb and got all of the supplies that Herb's army had. And then it was on in a big, big way.
So I misspoke. By this time, yes, he probably had close to 75 to 125,000 people in his army, but they had split off because Crixus, who was one of the gladiators that you just mentioned, one of the original gladiators he broke out of the gladiator school with, and who basically co-operated the army with him, he apparently wanted to split off and take it straight to Rome, wanted to attack Rome. And Spartacus's whole thing was like, no, let's go north to Thrace, out of Italy. We can build our army up even better there and either just hang out in Thrace and be great, or maybe then we can come back to Italy. And they had a disagreement, they had a falling out, and they split up, and Crixus took 30,000 men. And like you said, I don't remember if it was Peaches or Herb who got him, but the Crixus and his men were killed. But simultaneously, even though Spartacus later beat both of those guys, he had just lost 30,000 of his troops, which is a pretty big troop reduction, especially basically overnight.
Yeah, but he still won in the end in that battle.
He did.
He fought very bravely. He rushed either Peaches or Herb, broke them down, captured their supplies, and then we don't know for sure if he defeated Herb or not, or if they just retreated. But at any rate, that was sort of the end of them, and they were allowed to go on to the Alps.
Right. So, do you want to take another break?
Yeah, let's take our last break, and we'll wind it up here with the last stand. Okay.
Hey everybody, you know Duncan? Well, Duncan knows that you're home from school early and that it's a little bit different this year, huh Chuck?
Yeah, because a lot of us are distance learning. You might have like your little brother or little sister in your class, or your mom might be your RA in addition to your mom.
Yes, well, Duncan is here to lift your semester slump by offering and presenting and granting you your favorite snacks, your favorite drinks, like cold brew and iced matcha lattes and snackable bagel minis too.
That's right. What you want to do is make some custom combos.
That's where I want to be.
Favorite little items together, bring them home.
Put me there,
Help you get through, like, finals,
which
help
is
you get through these
41K
papers,
away,
right?
and I'm ready for online.
That's right.
So head to Duncan today and get your faves to
Now,
make
interior
studying for
defense
finals
is the
that much
expensive
sweeter.
thing out of
And
that.
don't forget one for your parents, because after all, they're stuck living with you too. Hey Chuck, did you know that McDonald's, which you tend to think of as a pretty huge global restaurant, is actually a local one too?
That's right. Each McDonald's is owned and operated by people who live where that McDonald's is. When you eat at McDonald's, you're actually supporting American businesses, maybe even your own neighbor's business.
Yeah, you're also supporting farmers, and you're also supporting the Ronald McDonald House Charities. And Ronald McDonald House Charities give families with sick kids a home away from home when they have to travel far for the care that they need, which is a pretty great charity, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, they've done great work over the years, and the franchisees also care about their community. They give back by helping first responders. They have a program called Thank You Meal Program, which provides free food for essential healthcare workers and first responders. And when you own and operate a McDonald's, you make a promise to serve the community where you do business. And that's what those franchisees do every day.
Which is why they say, Chuck, McDonald's serving here.
It just sucks that I can't get any more badges for shooting. I don't want to drive at all.
So Spartacus is not only now beaten praetors that the Romans sent, he's beaten consuls and their armies, and Rome is flipped out. I don't know if they knew that Crixus, who by the way was a Celt, which I find immensely interesting, but Crixus, I don't know if they knew that he was coming toward Rome, and that they just narrowly avoided being attacked by that contingent, but it was definitely on their mind that Rome was left unprotected, because remember, the best generals and their best armies were in Spain and Crete. And there was a really angry group of impoverished and escaped slaves who had assembled themselves into a pretty respectable army, possibly coming toward Rome.
Yeah, and Rome was on thin ice at this point. I mean, they were still super powerful, obviously, but they make a good point in this article that they kind of relied on the fact that everyone thought they were great and was super scared of them, and they had these big scary armies. And once they started getting these defeats, especially at the hands of a former slave who was leading this kind of ragtag team that was revolting against them, there's a little chink in that armor, and Spartacus is out there winning battles, and everyone hears about this, and that's a big deal to Rome. All of a sudden, they seem like they're defeatable.
Yeah, which if your society includes slaves, and the slaves are kept in line by the idea that you were undefeatable.
That's right, and so they seem like they're defeatable now. Their best armies and generals are away, and they couldn't really find anyone to really take care of Spartacus until this guy stepped up. He was a wealthy praetor named Marcus Crassus. He said, you know what, I've got the dough, and I'm a pretty brutal leader in my own right. Maybe you've heard of me. And so I'm going to finance this army, and I'm going to go kill that guy.
And so if there's a villain in this story, it is Crassus. He was a terrible person. Possibly the richest person Rome has ever seen. I read somewhere that he would go to places that had caught fire with his own personal fire brigade, and would negotiate with the owner of the house or whatever to buy it. And if they would negotiate at just an extremely cheap rate to sell their house that was on fire, then Crassus would have his fire brigade put it out. If they didn't negotiate or sell, then he would just leave with his fire brigade and let it burn. He was that kind of guy.
Crassus was like, hey man, this place is on fire, and I'm offering to buy it from you.
Right, it's a fire sale.
You should take this.
Yeah. But if they wouldn't, if they'd be like, no, this is completely unacceptable and immoral, he'd be like, all right, see you later, and his fire brigade would leave. That's just not good stuff. That's the kind of thing that if you do that, people continue to talk about it in a negative like 2,000 years later.
On some dumb podcast.
So Crassus, you also might recognize his name. He was part of the first triumvirate with Pompey and Caesar. He was the third guy.
Yeah, I remember that name.
So Crassus steps up and he says, you know what? My father got a triumph, which is basically like a military parade for a great military victory, and I've always been envious. I want mine. I'm going to make mine the defeat of Spartacus. I'm going to go get him. I'm going to finance this army. I'm going to go pick up some of the other armies that have been defeated and kind of left scattered around Italy and reassemble them. And there was one in particular. I think it was the army of the praetor who was almost captured, Verenius. Some of his people ran away. And Crassus got them together, I believe 500 people who had been accused of desertion and running away during battle. And he brought out the old steamer trunk, an old technique for keeping your troops in line called decimation chuck, which is a word that we've misused for years on this podcast. But this is the real deal that he was doing.
Yeah, and I don't think we've been misusing it for years. I think it's now part of popular terminology, just to not necessarily reduced by 10.
Okay, fair enough. But what he did was he said, okay, all of you 500 break up into 50 groups of 10, and in every group, all 10 of you draw lots. Whoever draws the shortest lot gets executed. And he executed 50 out of 500 deserters in front of his troops to basically say, hey, let's get that morale up, everybody. This is what happens to you if you don't fight valiantly. And that was the kind of leader that he was. So he's a real jerk in business and a real jerk on the battlefield, too, even with his own troops.
And a very selfish lover, from what I hear.
He really was. He'd be like, well, that's it for me. Good luck to yourself.
So he had a real bee in his bonnet to get the victory parade. He goes and chases Spartacus all over Italy. And there was some infighting going on, which is what can happen a lot of times in a rebellion if you don't keep everyone's spirits up. So that kind of weakened his army a little bit. And so in a last-ditch effort, Spartacus said, you know what we need to do is we need to go kill Crassus in front of everybody. And that'll do the trick. If everyone sees Crassus is gone, you cut off that head, and maybe another one will not grow up in its place.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out for Spartacus. He was actually cut down in battle. His army was finally defeated. They hunted down all 6,000 of the survivors of the army and crucified them. He was not himself crucified like in the movie Spartacus, and there was never that great moment in the movie, the I'm Spartacus moment. That never really happened in real life, unfortunately. They never found his body, which is sort of a sad end to this to a leader who did some pretty great things for a little while.
But not really, though, because I read he was last seen, he was really close to Crassus. He was headed to Crassus to kill him himself. And he, I think, killed 2 centurions in hand-to-hand combat on his way to Crassus before he was swarmed on, like Hollywood style, and cut down by, like, just a mob of dudes who overwhelmed him. Which if
That's not a sad end?
No, if you're living by the sword and dying by the sword, that's the way to go for sure.
Okay, I bet you he would have preferred to kill Crassus.
Sure, I'll give you that. But if he was never fated to kill Crassus, if that snake coiled on his head and foretold that he would never kill Crassus, that's the way to go.
Well, in the end, he is gone. His rebellion is squashed, but some good comes out of it. Rome kind of says, you know what? This taught us a great lesson, which is maybe we should listen to the lower class a little bit more. It wasn't some huge sweeping reform change or anything like that. I don't want to, sugarcoat it, but there were a number of reforms that were passed that did strengthen the voice of the people as a whole, and they had a little bit more say in their government because they didn't want another Spartacus to come along.
Yeah, and then over the years, many thousands of years later, like I said, he was kind of held up as this hero, this ideal. So the abolitionist movement in the United States held him up as a hero because he was known to free slaves. That was how he assembled his army. And he wasn't necessarily freeing slaves for the ideal of ending slavery. He was freeing slaves to help build up his army. But I'm sure there was a certain amount of this is a good thing that these slaves are no longer slaves when they're, with me, that he must have entertained at least. And then later on, like you said, Dalton Trumbo wrote the script for the 1960 movie directed by Kubrick on Spartacus. And Dalton Trumbo was blacklisted from Hollywood because he was a communist, or he wouldn't name names, I can't remember. And Dalton Trumbo wrote that script based on a novel written by a guy named Howard Fast, who had written the novel in jail because he wouldn't name names on the McCarthy hearings. And so Spartacus kind of became like a hero of Marxists because he freed slaves, he overthrew the oppressors, but he also took the oppressors' wealth and redistributed it among the lower classes, which Marxists are just bonkers for.
Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. There's plenty more about Spartacus, gladiators, all that stuff. This is really thick stuff.
Yeah.
It's not what we do. We just kind of give an overview. So if this floated your boat at all, go look up Spartacus, start reading on him, and you will be fascinated. And since I said that, it's time for listener mail.
I'm going to call this wastewater operator.
Okay.
Or a former, now retired wastewater operator. Hey guys, just finished listening to the episode on wastewater treatment with a critical ear, having worked for over 20 years as both a WW lab analyst and operator. While I understand you're aiming for the least knowledgeable common denominator in your audience, I feel like you did a disservice to all wastewater treatment plants and their employees by failing to mention that every treatment plant in America must abide by strict regulatory permits issued under the Clean Water Act tailored to the needs of the specific facility's influent. Your words make it sound like we in operations made our own decisions as to how clean the water, how clean is clean enough, and that cannot be further from the truth. I want to stop here because I don't feel like we did that, did we?
We certainly didn't mean to. I don't think that we were just like, it's up to Tex, who's running the levers, to decide what's clean enough. If we did, sorry, we definitely don't think that.
No, we didn't think that at all. In my position as analyst, I performed an average of 30,000 standard laboratory tests per year to maintain permanent compliance and support operations. That number increased dramatically when there were operational upsets, process changes, influent variations, etc. In addition, operators collect and analyze process control samples several times per shift for the same reason. I think we knew that stuff was going on, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to sound defensive, but...
Did this person listen or just say, I see this title, here's all the things they're going to get wrong?
No, I think they listened.
Okay, good.
I wish to thank you for attempting to educate the public on the vital role clean water and sewage treatment play in the health and prosperity of the United States. I firmly believe this is what truly makes America great. You don't hear people saying they need vaccinations and antibiotics to fend off waterborne illness when visiting the United States. Sorry to rant on. I appreciate your time. Thanks for reading, and please put out a big thank you to all wastewater treatment operators about whom nobody is paying attention, but whom everyone needs. And that is from Ann Danielson, retired operator and analyst.
Thanks a lot, Ann. Let's get stuff. And yes, agreed. If everyone doesn't know that we need wastewater treatment people, and they're not paying attention. So hats off to you and your colleagues.
Agreed. Yes, there's a lot of work and analysis and testing, and if we didn't hammer that home enough, then we are now.
Yeah, well, if we missed the mark on something, or you just wanted to add something, or just want to say, hey, you guys nailed it, we love that. You can get in touch with us via email. Wrap it up, spank it on the bottom, and send it off to stuffpodcast@iheartradio.com.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio's How Stuff Works. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
Hey friends, this year getting a head start on the holidays doesn't mean just putting up your lights before Thanksgiving. It means shopping and shipping early too. FedEx is expecting a record number of packages will be shipped this holiday. It's going to be a shipping marathon, also known as the Shipathon. FedEx is training harder than ever to deliver packages quickly and safely. So make sure you shop and ship early this season. Visit FedEx.com/holiday guide to learn more.
Hey everybody, it's AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys with my girl Cheryl Burke and my boy Renee Elizondo on iHeartRadio's Pretty Messed Up. This episode is brought to you by Traffic.
Number of packages will be
One of our many.
Get to that in a second. Do it again. That's awesome. Chuck's barking because this is stuff you should know, and this particular stuff you should know is entitled How Do Dogs Perceive Time?
And I said in dog language just then, I don't perceive time.
That is up for debate, my friend. Up for vigorous debate.
All right.
So, Chuck, let me give a little intro here, a little lead-in, segue, whatever.
I know I spoiled your parade there.
What do we call them these days?
What do we what?
Segues, lead-ins, intros?
Intro.
Schmeckles? Schmeckles. Chuck, about a year ago this month, France, made history, legal history.
How so?
They actually used a dog as a witness in a criminal case.
Did they get the dog to, bark at someone?
Yep. Wow. I kid you not.
Well, like an intruder?
At the very least, and I hope I'm not a Bangladeshi newspaper here, because I found it in the Daily Mail, which is not known for satire, but it can be known for poor reporting from time to time.
So you may have egg on your face soon.
We'll find out. But there's a dog named Scoopy that was brought into a...
Sounds less
it does, doesn't it? I should have forwarded you this article. There was a dog named Scoopy that was brought into a murder case, or a hearing, to see if there was enough evidence to try a man for murder, for something that was ruled a suicide, and the dog barked furiously at the alleged perpetrator.
They gave him a Scooby snack?
Yeah, so that was the last I heard. It was from a year ago. But there was some concern over whether the dog's memory would serve it or not, because it had been 2.5 years since the incident.
Okay, that makes sense. And that's kind of key to how dogs may or may not perceive time.
It's the best I could come up with.
That's great.
Thanks. So what that betrays is a sense by at least the reporter and the courts in Paris that dogs have a memory, that they if they have a memory, then they should be able to perceive time, right?
Right.
Chuck, let's talk about this. What is time?
Oh, dude. Kidding me? Well, you know my whole deal with time. I've said it before.
What?
Well, time is just abstract. Numbers on a calendar and hands on a watch aren't time.
Well, yeah, no. What you're talking about is the human construct of time.
Yes.
Based on 24 hours,
Which
right?
is all kind of arbitrary.
7 days in a week. Well, not necessarily.
Well, not anymore.
Here's why. It was actually kind of ingenious that we should come up with a 24-hour day because we have these things called circadian oscillators.
Yes.
Which are they're the fluctuators in our circadian rhythm, which is what makes us fall asleep at night, wake up in the morning,
body temperature,
get hungry at certain times,
neural activity.
Right. The neural activity and the hormones are reactions to things like changes in temperature that are on a daily basis. Things like the changes in natural light. Right. So our reactions to these are circadian oscillators, and if you put them all together, like sleeping at night and waking up in the morning, that's our circadian rhythm. Right. But these circadian clocks actually exist on about a 24-hour period.
Oh, that makes sense then.
So, but like you said, days on the calendar and all that, that is a human construct.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to get to the bottom of is whether or not dogs can perceive this, not necessarily the human construct of time,
right,
but of time in and of itself, which is essentially a past, present, and future.
Exactly. And I know that one thing that we will talk about, and maybe we'll talk about right now, is you have 3 dogs.
Do you have any dogs?
I have 2 dogs.
What?
Shut up. I have 2 dogs, and I'm actually fostering 2 feral puppy rescues, which you know. So right now,
if you want to get rid of those 2 dogs, because we could get rid of them like that if we plug this on this podcast.
Yeah, we're kind of picky about who we give them to.
Okay, well, how about this? If you're not a creep and you love dogs,
and you live in the East Lake area,
send us an email if you want one of Chuck's puppies.
Very cute.
Yeah.
So anyway, if your dogs are anything like my dogs, and actually my cats too, they know when the food bell is going to ring.
Sure.
Actually, Emily calls it food abuse. They start the food abuse typically about an hour and a half before they typically get fed every afternoon. And in the morning, we feed them pretty much straight away in the morning, so they know then. But my dog Lucy, dude, comes in the room and looks at you with her head cocked, stamps on the floor with her feet, and goes, and I'm waiting for her literally to one day say, feed me. One day, I told Emily if she did that one day, I would be surprised for about a second.
So, Chuck, here is where we reach the bone of contention.
Right.
Sorry for that pun. I'm not Jonathan Strickland.
Your dogs do the same thing, though, I assume, right?
Well, no, my dogs are fed constantly. They always have food. For some reason, I lucked out, and they eat whatever they want whenever they're hungry.
I can't imagine that.
It's pretty cool.
My dogs eat their food like it's the first time they've ever been fed.
I've seen that before. My dogs, they're pretty laid back when it comes to stuff like that.
Are they fat?
No.
Really?
No, they're healthier than I am.
Well,
they're healthier than a lot of people I know. No, they regulate their food intake on their own. It's weird.
It's so weird.
But I know what you're talking about. So the question is this: do your dogs know, based on past experience, that food is coming at a certain time of day? Not necessarily like 5:35 p.m., but say, as far as the dog's concerned, when sun is low in sky over there.
Right. Are they Native American?
Right. I was going to say, no, they're like Italians playing Native Americans.
Right.
You think I'm dumbbell? So,
or is it a circadian oscillator? Well, that's the circadian oscillator.
It could be, yeah. It could be. What that is they're using the memories of past experiences to predict the future, which is episodic memory, which is our construction of time. Or is this semantic memory, which is totally different but related? Do you want me to go into this because this is outside research?
Well, I have no choice then.
Semantic memory is, all right, Chuck, let's say that you have brain damage to your frontal lobe.
I do, in fact.
Which is where your episodic memory is is located. It's the region that controls episodic memory, which is learning from experience, right? You could conceivably learn how to play chess, right?
Right.
But you won't remember where you learned how to play chess.
Right, much like they say a baby learns how to walk and talk, but they don't remember that day you taught me how to walk.
They don't have to relearn crawling or walking or talking
on a day-to-day basis.
Right, because they learned it, and that's semantic memory. That's like facts and rules and possibly motor movements or whatever. Or, if I run into this wall, it's going to hurt my face because I'm crawling.
Right.
But they don't remember, somebody teaching them, like, come crawl to me, that kind of thing, right? So, yeah, that's semantic memory. Episodic memory would be like, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
A fruit smoothie.
You had a fruit smoothie.
I remember what the light looked like. I remember what it smelled like.
That is precisely episodic memory. And I should probably give a shout out to T.R. Zental, who I'm like just blatantly ripping off right now. The chess example was one of Zental's examples of semantic memory. And what you've just said is almost word for word an example of episodic memory. You said, you remember these other details.
Sure.
Whereas had you said, I had a smoothie this morning, I must have because I always have a smoothie, right? That would be, well, not the burping part, but if you always had it, that'd be more like semantic memory.
Okay.
So we reached the question: do dogs perceive time, or are these reactions that appear like they're keeping track of time some way, maybe through a circadian oscillator, based on semantic memories? And there's been a lot of studies that are not necessarily on dogs, but on other animals, right?
Yeah. What's this crackpot's name?
Roberts?
No. What's this guy's name? Dr. Roberts.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm going to take issue with Dr. Roberts.
Yeah. William Roberts. He's an animal cognition researcher.
Right.
Right off the bat, you're taking issue with that.
Not that far.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, he did some studies on pigeons and primates, to name a couple, and long-term and short-term memory, as far as remembering a sequence that they would, I guess the pigeons would peck it out, the primates would tap it out, and to get a reward. And they found that they have pretty good short-term memory for this kind of thing.
Right, which is what that's working memory, right?
Yes.
But long-term is reference memory.
Yeah, but as far as the reference goes, they couldn't remember it that well if there was a big break in between.
Right. Roberts actually wrote a very famous paper as far as animal cognition goes, where he basically said that he concluded animals are stuck in time. And I just made air quotes for those of you out there listening to the podcast land. By stuck in time, it means that they live exclusively in the present, that they don't have the capacity for forming long-term episodic memory.
Episodic is the key word.
It is very much the key word.
Because I know at home you're saying, no, I taught my dog to sit when she was 1. That's not the same thing. That's what we're talking about with the baby learning how to walk.
Right. But that's not. There's a lot of examples out there in nature that would kind of belie Dr. Roberts' idea that animals or dogs are stuck in time. Well, a good one is squirrels foraging food,
Stocking up
to
for the winter.
store for the winter, and doing it year after year after year. I believe Roberts actually addressed that and says, but they continue hoarding even when their stores inexplicably disappear, which I assume some researchers went and stole squirrels' nuts and then studied them to see what they would do. I don't understand that at all.
I don't either. It seems like that would make them want to hoard.
Yeah. So I kind of have an issue with that one a little bit, but it's possible I'm not entirely seeing that point all the way.
I don't see the point. I'm not quite sure what he meant there.
But there's also one about the bananas, right, Chuck? There were some primates that were given choices between more or less bananas.
Yeah, and predictably, at first, if you offered an ape 1 banana or 2 bananas, they're going to take the 2 bananas.
True.
But they found that when they started increasing the number of bananas, like 10 compared to 20, they would just go for the 10 bananas. They wouldn't. He thought this meant they can't. They have no concept of the future. Like, maybe I should take these bananas because I might be hungry tomorrow.
Right. Now that's I think Roberts fails to take into account social structure.
Sure.
Right? We know that we could use 10 bananas for tomorrow, but we also have things like preservation techniques or refrigeration available to us.
That's what I thought too.
And if you go back in time just a few thousand years ago to hunter-gatherer societies or even hunter-gatherer societies that are around now, they don't store food at all. They forage for what they need right then, and that's what they eat. I would imagine that would actually explain a lot of the primate decisions. There's no real reason to. Their society isn't set up on this idea that I need more and more to protect myself in the future.
Exactly.
I don't know that necessarily means that they don't have any concept of the future. I think that there's all these other explanations out there.
Right, and they may, like when I read that, the first thing I thought was maybe they've never taken more than 10 bananas in their life because they've never needed to, so it doesn't even dawn on them that should be something they would do.
Exactly. Well, I guess what we're saying, both of us are on the same page here. There are other explanations.
I agree.
And I think one of the things I took from this article was that Roberts found it conclusive that animals are stuck in time by cherry-picking some studies here.
Yeah, we kind of disagree with them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other factors. I know that my dog Lucy is stuck in time at 5:30 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
Because she's always asking for the food.
You started as an RN, caring for one patient at a time, but now you're being called to help more patients more often. By earning your Master's in Nursing Leadership and Healthcare Systems degree online from Grand Canyon University, you could become a lead.
Started on the holidays this season, buddy. So let's get Josh and Chuck on the case. Verbatim what they said.
That's right. They know the obstacles this year are going to be bigger.
Did you ever hear that like goldfish have a 8? So I guess another problem, it's entirely possible, Chuck, that our brains just aren't big enough to, but they're not as big as Robert's brain.
Maybe.
Did you ever hear that like goldfish have an 8-second memory span?
I'd never heard that.
So I have, right?
You have a goldfish?
I do have a goldfish here.
You're a cutie.
Yeah, Molly. She's very cute.
Your this name Molly? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But having an episodic memory makes it almost impossible to think about not having one. So, like, if a goldfish does have a memory of 8 seconds, does it mean that every 8 seconds all of its memories are purged, like getting rid of the browser history in your computer? Or as new experiences come into the present, are older ones pushed out after they hit this 8-second maturity level?
Right. And how do they test that on a goldfish anyway?
Perfect, Chuck. Perfect segue. Here's the biggest problem. Robert's position is almost inherently speciesist. You familiar with this term?
Yeah.
This is a legitimate term. I'm not making this up.
Animals have no souls.
Animals don't have souls. It's impossible for a dog to be happy because that's a secondary emotion, and dogs aren't self-aware enough. There's a competing explanation for all of this. Speciesists tend to rely very strictly, or remain very strictly within the structure provided by the scientific method.
And all his studies here, he probably came at it from that frame of mind.
Sure, right. But there's another way of looking at it, and that is that humans simply haven't come up with tests that are clever enough to get definitive proof that an animal can experience happiness, or is aware of time, the future, the past, that kind of thing. You can take that way too far. Like after test after test after test that proves the opposite, you could still conceivably say, well, there's a test out there that we haven't come up with yet that proves that they can. But I think that the testing that has been done is very much below that threshold so far. I don't think we have a clue what animals are capable of as far as consciousness goes, because we have such a loose grasp on our own consciousness.
Sure, and we certainly can't delve into an animal's brain and see what they think, and they can't tell us anything. I guarantee you one thing. I bet you Dr. Roberts is not a dog owner. Agreed, because you have dogs, dude. And I guarantee we're going to get tons of mail from people saying, are you kidding? My dog displays emotion every day. And, I guess Caesar, the dog whisperer, might say, that's you're putting a human construct on the dog's frame of mind.
Yeah, anthropomorphizing.
Yeah, I don't know, man. My dog is... They're both pretty emotional.
Well, yeah, anthropomorphizing is the go-to ammunition for speciesists.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say that anybody who's saying, like, no, animals can't be happy because it's a secondary emotion and they lack that sense of self-awareness that's required to experience a secondary emotion is a speciesist. But the two often go hand in hand, and it's really interesting that there's a line drawn right now between people who think animals don't have a soul, and people who think animals can be happy, and all of the implications that come with that.
Jerry, I bet you think your dog has a soul, right?
Jerry's saying yes.
Jerry just gave the sweetest face and nodded yes.
There's an animation they're throwing in there that's completely throwing me off.
Today, every answer matters more than ever before. Because whether it's about health, deliveries, or finance, some things just can't wait. That's why IBM's helping businesses manage millions of calls, texts, and chats with Watson Assistant. It's conversational AI designed to help your customers find the answers they need faster, no matter the industry. Let's put smart to work. Visit IBM.com/Watson Assistant to learn more.
My friend, more than 75% of identity theft victims who had accounts opened in their name did not find out they had been victimized from their bank or their credit card company.
Yeah, so don't be one of the 75% who didn't check more places identity theft could be hiding. Get LifeLock identity theft protection.
That's right. LifeLock sees certain threats you can miss if you're only monitoring your credit and bank statements, and they'll alert you if they find something that could be suspicious.
Yeah, plus, if you become a victim of identity theft, a U.S.-based identity restoration specialist dedicated to your case will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but LifeLock can help protect your personal information.
That's right. So join now and save up to 25% off your first year just by going to lifelock.com/stuff. That is LIFELOCK.com/STUFF.
It annoys me I'm not getting shooting badges, but it's just quicker. It's quicker to get the games over with. It's annoying.
Yeah, so I feel like Chuck and I just opened a big old can of worms, so we'll see how this plays out in the emails, right?
Yeah.
If you want to read more about dogs perceiving time, to answer the question, according to Roberts, no, dogs don't perceive time. Time's a human construct consisting of a past, present, and future, and dogs pretty much live in the present. Chuck and I don't necessarily agree with that one. You can go on and type in dogs perceive time in the handy search bar at howstuffworks.com. Since I just said that, it means it's time for a whole mess of listener mail.
You were right. Josh, this is, we're just going to call this Muppet Mail. And we are going to go on a little longer than usual with our mail because the Muppet podcast, I think we will all agree, was sort of a sea change episode.
And plus, we just want to see how long this background music actually goes for.
I know. I mean, we literally got better response from the Muppet Show episode than anything we've ever done, I would say. Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
The Henson Company twittered about it.
Yeah. Heather Henson, we should say our colleague and friend Jonathan Strickland of Tech Stuff fame, his sister
knows.
is friends with Heather Henson, and it went viral thanks to him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we got great response. It's clear that everyone loves the Muppets, and so I wanted to go just through a few of these because I didn't want to just do one. Quickly, before we start, we never do this, but a guy sent me an email and I kind of touched a chord with me. So I want to quickly give a shout out for Joe to Beth in Elwood, Indiana. And Joe just wants to say that he thinks that you are a pretty cool chick, Beth.
Chuck, are you playing matchmaker? Is that why you're wearing nothing but a diaper and you have those wings on?
I'm saying with Beth and Elwood, Joe thinks you're a cool chick, and so because she actually sent us a Alien Hand Syndrome video, which rocked. Cool. It's good. I'll show it to you. Quick couple of things that we didn't mention in corrections. First of all, I mistakenly referred to the Children's Television Workshop as the Children's Television Network, so I goofed that one.
You're thinking of home shopping then.
I was.
For kids.
We did not mention every Muppet movie. We did not mention every Muppet venture because
No, I want to elucidate on this. We did that on purpose. First of all, we mentioned the 3 that were in theatrical release.
directed by Jim Henson.
Yes, and by first of all, I mean that's it.
Right. So a lot of people said, "Oh, could you not mention Muppets Christmas Carol?" And we wanted to mention everything, but we would have been sitting here reading things all day long about the Dark Crystal and other Muppet ventures. So we chose to only do the Henson.
Would you like to say Dark Crystal? It creeps me out still.
Yeah. And that was hinted too, because I know people are going to write and say that was hinted, but whatever.
Right.
We had a guy named Peter wrote in, and he told us about the Muppet Whatnot Workshop.
Yeah, and Goldman Sachs and
F.A.O. Schwartz.
Yes.
And you can go to New York City, and you could do it online, but I looked and it's down right now. But
I think it's just around Christmas time or the holidays.
No, they got bought out by Toys R Us, I think, so that's down right now. But you can still go to New York, you can go to the Muppet Workshop, and you can build your own Whatnot.
At Goldman Sachs.
And it costs about $100. And he sent me a picture of he and his little cute daughter with her Muppet Whatnot. So you want to thank Peter for that. And actually, God, going on and on, but Peter had one of the big Fu Manchu mustaches like me.
Yeah.
Did I tell you about this? No. I said, very cool, Peter. Thanks for sending this. I said, looks like you picked up a mustache while you were there. And he wrote back and said, no, I got that at the Sam Elliott Supply Center down the street or something.
Nice. Peter packed the picnic supper.
So that is all of the corrections. Now we have a few emails.
Oh my God.
Josh and Chuck had just listened to how Muppets worked. I was excited to hear you talk about it because you mentioned the costume designer for Miss Piggy, who happens to be my Aunt Callista.
Oh, wow.
She, if you look up the Muppet movie, you can see her in the costume and wardrobe department on IMDb. She worked closely with Henson, and I've actually seen a picture of her with Jim Henson setting up some Muppets in Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. She left the Muppets, I think, when Jim Henson died, but we still see her once a year. That's from Sam. And Josh is, in fact, eating a Reese's cup. On to the next one. Hi, guys. I love your recent podcast. I was listening and thought I would mention that Jim Henson studied Muppetology at University of Maryland. I know this because I went to school there, and there is a Jim Henson Studies program, and it is our claim to fame. I didn't know he went to my school until I went there, and there is actually a little a bench, a statue. It's a bench with Henson sitting on it, and Kermit sitting on the back of the bench, and they're kind of holding hands.
That is beyond cute.
It is very cute. So, and she also says that this is from Alicia, that they have the rights to It Ain't Easy Being
Why don't you have another text from Bath and Body
Their
Works?
marching band actually plays that.
The University of Maryland?
Go Terps. Yeah, go Terps. Moving on.
Man, listen to this background music, Chuck. It is.
I know. We compared the Muppet Show to 30 Rock, and Phil of Linden, Washington, has this to say. I was trying to imagine Sesame Street would look like in real life. 2 little boys getting their own apartment, a giant bird that sleeps behind garbage cans, a few scattered, seemingly sensible adults who really have no jobs and nothing else to do.
No, Mr. Hooper at the store.
That's true. Finally, it hit me while working my job as a special ed classroom assistant. It is one big government-operated group home facility for special needs children and adults. Think about it. Bert displays classic Asperger's syndrome. They share a bedroom, and obviously have some adult taking care of the rest of their house. Oscar is schizophrenic with his mood swings, and a worm is a best friend, as is Big Bert with his imaginary friend, Snuffleupagus. And tell me Grover's not dealing with severe ADHD and Cookie Monster from manic bipolar tendencies. And the jobless adults, Gordon, Susan, and Bob. So that's from Phil.
Are they jobless adults or the caregivers?
He says they're jobless adults. We've got 2 more. Jerry's laughing at how long this is going, but I warned her. I was listening to your fantastic podcast and I had to write in. I am getting married at the Henson Soundstage next year. Sweet. So cool. He and his wife to be toured the soundstage. It was like being behind the scenes of the Muppet Show. We were honored as the first wedding ever to be hosted there. And I asked him, I wrote it back, so I did, what's the hookup? And he had none. He just asked. They rented out to people if you're like kids. No one's ever thought have a wedding. And that is from, he gave us some facts, but remember that. That is from Dan and of TDFillustration.com. He's a cool artist and I wanted to plug that from Dan. And finally, Josh, from Jake in Newport Richey, Florida, says, I was an accident in the 80s, and I missed the Muppet heyday, but I was lucky enough to have 3 older sisters and parents who had the foresight to ensure that they taped several seasons of the Muppet Show. So Jake is a big fan of Muppets now, and he told us this fact, which I did not know. Since Jim Henson's death, Ralph the dog has not spoken and is seldom used. And it's my understanding that they do this out of reverence to Mr. Henson because Ralph is his favorite puppy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Chuck just wiped away a tear. You sweet old softie.
So that's Muppet Mail. We got hundreds of pieces of mail and good blog response. And thanks for sending it. That was a good show.
Yeah, and we'll try to keep you supplied with more good shows in the future. If you want to send an email and try to make Chuck cry, it's not that hard. You can send it to stuffpodcast@howstuffworks.com.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio's How Stuff Works. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
Hey friends, this year getting a head start on the holidays doesn't mean just putting up your lights before Thanksgiving. It means shopping and shipping early too. FedEx is expecting a record number of packages will be shipped this holiday. It's going to be a shipping marathon, also known as the Shipathon. FedEx is training harder than ever to deliver packages quickly and safely. So make sure you shop and ship early this season. Visit FedEx.com/holiday guide to learn more.
Ever wondered why there are two ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is Stuff You Should Know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
This episode is brought to you by Trafficked with Mariana Van Zeller, premiering Wednesdays at 9, 8 Central on National Geographic. Investigative journalist Van Zeller dives into the most dangerous black markets on the planet, from hydro traffickers and international scammers to counterfeiters and gun runners, to get inside access into the world's trillion-dollar shadow economy. After each episode, check out the Trafficked podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode is brought to you by IBM. Today, answers matter more than ever before. That's why IBM is helping businesses manage customer questions with Watson Assistant. It's conversational AI designed to work for any industry. Let's put smart to work. Visit IBM.com/Watson Assistant. Welcome to Stuff You Should Know, a production of iHeartRadio's How Stuff Works.
Hey, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Josh Clark. There's Charles W. Chuck Bryan over there. This is Stuff You Should Know. I don't know if we're going to be able to get used to Jerry being.
Is she fired?
I don't think so. She may have fired herself, though.
I just hope so.
I have better things to do than hang out with you, cool
Yeah.
cats.
Well, and it's kind of like, what's the point of just sitting there and I can't imagine more boring than listening to us on headphones. Oh, wait a minute. That's our show.
Yes. There are people doing that very thing right now, Chuck, and you have just mocked their existence.
Oh, I just meant for Jerry's sake, you know.
Yeah, Jerry's not a fan.
No, she's not.
Or a listener. So, I have a question for you, Chuck.
Have you ever read a book?
No, don't be ridiculous. Chuck, have you ever met Agatha Christie?
Yeah, I met her when I was 3.
Oh, really? Do you have much of a memory of that encounter?
A little bit. She was nice enough. She signed my Murder on the Orient Express copy for its edition.
Oh, wow, that's got to be worth some money.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah. Do you still have that?
Nah. I did some spring cleaning here a couple weeks ago. I didn't even recycle it or did it in a little free library. I just threw it in the trash.
Didn't you say once that your brother has like a copy of #1 Superman or something nuts like that?
No.
I thought he has some valuable comic book.
No.
Huh.
No.
I must be confusing you with my other co-host Chuck.
No, we weren't big comic book people. We don't have anything valuable like that.
I gotcha. Well, having met Agatha Christie when you were a kid, I feel like you'll probably have a lot to bring to this one. I have never met her, still to this day, probably never will. And I have read a couple of her things and seen a couple of movies based on her stuff, but I would never consider myself like a rabid Agatha Christie fan. But I do appreciate her work a lot. You picked this one. Why?
We have this series of books, children's books about awesome women in history, from Frida to Coco Chanel to Amelia Earhart to Agatha Christie. And so I was reading this one the other night and thought, hey, let's do one on Agatha Christie. I haven't read any of her work, seen a couple of her movies. Love the genre, though.
Yeah.
It's films. I've never read murder mysteries, although I'm going to now.
I started reading The Mysterious Affair of Styles, which I think was her first published work, last night. And it's just great. She just sucks you right in. She does she creates a lot of books, not all of them, but she creates what's called a cozy mystery with an S because it's British. And I'd never heard that term before until this article, but when I came across it, I was like, yes, I love that kind of thing. And that's exactly what I love about Murder, She Wrote. Like, the Murder, She Wrote, where she goes to like Broadway or Paris or something like that, I can take her leave, they're fine. But it's the ones that are set in tiny little Cabot Cove that's just isolated from the rest of the world, and it's cozy and small, and it's like a village and all that. Those are the Murder, She Wrote that I love the most. And I think that's what I like about Agatha Christie mysteries, too, is they're very typically cozy mysteries.
I've never seen that show.
What?
We've had this conversation before.
No, that would be seared into my brain forever.
Now we have, because you said that the first time. Yeah, I've never seen it, but I'm a huge fan of murder mystery movies, especially cozy mysteries. Like Clue is one of my favorite films, and last year's Knives Out was one of my top 3 or 4 films of the year.
I've not seen it yet. It's still like $7 on Amazon Prime, so I haven't rented it yet. I'm waiting for the price point to drop.
I can loan you a couple bucks if you need.
All right, sure. $3.99.
$3.99. All right,
$3.99. It's still a lot for a rental. I mean, that's a lot.
You think?
$3.99 is manageable. $4.99 and up. That's a lot of moolah for a rental, if you ask me.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm taking a stand on this.
All right. Well, film professionals out there, please do not take offense to all your hard work.
So, I have a question for you. I have one more question. Have you seen the Agatha Christie film adaptation of Crooked House that came out in 2017?
No.
I think you'll like it. It was big budget, but it also looks like British made for television. Big budget.
It's great.
Gillian Anderson, Dana Scully is in it.
Okay.
Because, the Brits are nuts for her.
Are they?
Oh, man. She's like their favorite person in the world, has been for years. Don't know why. Nothing against Gillian Anderson, but like she just never hit it as big over here as she did there. Terrence Stamp is in it.
Love him.
Glenn Close.
She's great.
And I was like, this is really good. And so I was reading little synopses of it and all that stuff, and it seemed like it's widely regarded as one of her best, most ingenious and inventive works.
Crooked House?
Crooked House. I believe that's on Amazon Prime.
Well, yes. Do you actually do the math of how much you pay for Amazon Prime to see how much you're paying for that movie?
I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do that.
How many pennies?
Why'd you do that to me? All right, so Charles, let's get into this because I know that this one could be a little long if we're not deliberate and I would say maybe considerate of our time.
All right, well, that's an 8-minute intro, so far so good.
Okay.
She is perhaps, again, it's kind of hard to tell with book sales because they can be a little dodgy, but she is often quoted as seen as the best-selling novelist of all time. And I did a little check to compare, like I thought when Stephen King sold a book or two.
Sure.
They tag his book sales at about 350 million. Her 66 novels and 14 collected works of short stories supposedly have sold to the tune of $2 billion.
I saw $4 billion in one place, and I think after you hit the billion mark, you can just start tossing around whatever number you want.
I think so. That's
like, for example, we've had 70 billion downloads now. I just decided.
Oh, great. That's a lot of downloads.
But think about it. Stephen King, how many books has that cat written? How many has he sold all around the world? And it amounts to 350 million, and he's one of the best-selling authors of all time. A lot of people say that Agatha Christie's numbers hit 2 billion, like you said. That's astounding.
Yeah, that is a ton of books. I don't think our Swedish notebook will approach those numbers.
No, you never say never, though.
It's a lofty goal.
Never say never. I also saw that she's the most widely translated author of all time, too. I saw 45 languages. I was like, this seems a little low. So then somewhere else I saw 103. So let's go with that.
So let's talk about this cozy mystery, or just mystery novels in general. They are very much formulaic, which Ed helped us put this together. Ed points out that's why people like them, because the familiarity and the sort of a comfort food thing, like a good beach book. You know what you're going to get.
Right, yeah. There's surprises and everything woven in. I mean, the whole thing is meant to be a surprise. It's a mystery. Or the mysteries that Agatha Christie not only wrote, but actually the whole genre she helped to develop, is that you are ostensibly able to figure out who the culprit is in the murder. It's almost always a murder. And so there is surprise involved. That's the point. But there's also a tremendous amount of familiarity. And that's that formula you were talking about. That's what really has sucked generations of people into this whole genre. Her 66 plus books.
Yeah, so you got that murder. You usually don't see this murder occur. She doesn't usually, in general, in murder mysteries, you don't see the murder. That's kind of not the point of how grisly or gruesome the act is. It's sort of all about finding that body. And I had a bunch of Knives Out things to say, but I won't say any of them now.
Thank you.
But then you've got your detective that arrives on the scene. And I will say this, Knives Out very much follows this formula very smartly. So you've got this master detective who usually arrives upon the scene, but they may already be there, and they are generally very eccentric and sort of they always have these quirky sort of characteristics. In Christie's case, we have the very formidable Hercule Poirot, and then Miss Marple, Jane Marple. In Hercule's case, he's Belgian and has this big mustache and is just sort of eccentric and Belgian.
Good.
He's not French. There's something about being Belgian that makes it slightly different.
Sure.
And Miss Marple apparently is just very ordinary, and people underestimate her, and that's how she sort of wins the day.
Yeah, because for Hercule Poirot was a retired Belgian police detective, so he has some measure of authority still to question people and interrogate people as he wishes. With Miss Marple, she's just kind of a quiet old lady who sews and knits a lot, and she just has a very keen eye for detail and an interest in solving, the murders that seem to happen around her.
Like Angela Lansbury.
Basically, yes, but rather than interrogate people directly, Miss Marple's thing is she just kind of quietly is there. People tend to confide in her, and she kind of quietly helps them along and gives them the rope to hang themselves with. That's how she interrogates people or figures out who the murderer is.
Right, so you've got your setting.
Seems like that's out of his range.
Like you said, it's usually like an estate or a home, maybe a hotel.
I need to be up on that line.
Orient Express obviously is on a train.
I know I can green it, but it's thrown out the window enough that I'm missing.
Train to Busan?
I confuse that with Snowpiercer. I think I've seen both, but I can't remember which one's which.
It's very similar, but Busan is zombies on a train, Korean film.
No, then I think I've just seen Snowpiercer.
You should check out Train to Busan. If you think you've seen it all with the zombie genre, then think again.
Dude, that's saying something, because that genre has gotten a little stale. Hey, let me ask you this. Have you seen, I know you've seen it, you had to, Ozark?
Oh, sure.
Just started it.
Yeah, I'm a couple of episodes into the latest season.
Okay, yeah. You mean I just started it season 1, and I'm like, all I want to do is sit around and watch Ozark. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. That's like Hartwelling now.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's smart.
I'm trying to get Bateman and Laura Linney on Movie Crush, and it's always, think you know.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Hey, you can't respond.
On that note, I'm going to take a break. Go hit the wife. And pick it up here in a bit. I mean, this jumper seems to be doing fine, though. I mean, I'm pissy because I'm hitting 60%, but I haven't dropped below 60%. I've had a bunch of 80% games with it. I don't think I've squeaked out a 90. I might have, but it is what it is. More time with it, I think I will get there. There's a good amount of them lining up, I guess you could say. But I'd like to get this done. I mean, I think the big things for me right now would be getting interior defense and ball handling. Ball handling, I believe, affects catch. It's the only reason I think I want to go there. But I don't have to. I could always go free throw or something. Give it some free throw to get to 80. I think I want 70-ish. But overall, we'll see. Somewhere in that area. Won't take long. But we got Gym Rat. We got that first season underway, so we're actually getting good VC. Got all our badges as far as shooting goes, so we're pretty set. I'll be back in a bit. Hit it.